Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to yet another Explorers Life Live Q&A session. I hope everybody's doing well. Steph, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good this morning.
Outstanding. I'm glad it's Friday.
Me too. It's been a long week.
It's been a long week, and I feel like I was looking for something earlier. I was looking for some little pieces of like conduit fittings, and there's no way I used all of them in the last project, and I simply can't find them. And I know that by the time I get off of this live stream and then go look for them, they're just going to be like sitting on my workbench.
They're just going to appear.
Yeah. So, so I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I probably spent more time looking for those fittings than I did like finishing the project is actually going to take. So finishing the project, we got a cargo trailer that we have built that we're taking to events and stuff like that. So if you've been to any of the events this year, you've probably seen it. But this weekend we are sponsoring a local mountain bike and trail running race. Just we're all pretty avid bikers and hikers and trail runners here on the team, and so to varying degrees. And so we're sponsoring a local race and here in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. So if you're in the area or want to be in the area, come on up and see us. We'll have a tent set up. Our cargo trailer is actually powering the start and finish line. So like the inflatable arch, the PA system, all of the timers, all that kind of stuff. So
so there will be no generators.
There will be no generator. So it's all powered by our systems, and it should be a good time. Come on out, chat with us. We can show you the trailer. We can answer questions. We can just hang out. Should be pretty chill for the most part. So a couple of things as everybody's joining in. I see that we've got quite a few people already in the chat. So thanks for tuning in this morning. We'll probably talk for another like 2 or 3 minutes and get the Q&A session started. Here on the Explorers Life team, I got myself and Steph. And then we also have some of the Explorers Life team tuning in. We've got Grace, and she is going to be dropping in links to videos and resources and stuff like that. So if you know we've made a video over something, we reference it. She's going to be dropping links. Ira is also here. He can answer some of the more technical questions and questions about installations, as can Morgan. She is also in here. And lastly, we've got Nicholas in here as well. He can answer some of the more technical product questions and kit questions from our store, as well as any B2B questions if you're an installer or anything like that. You can answer questions on those. So you can message them, and if you need some additional support, you can just ask for it. Chad is off today, so he is typically in the chat, but he is not today. He is off. I saw he was tubing.
Oh, fun. There's no water in the river. I don't know how he's tubing.
Yeah. So a couple little house cleaning items that I kind of wanted to address.
House cleaning? Housekeeping.
House cleaning, whatever. It's a Friday, like I said. So a couple things I wanted to address, like as everybody's just dropping in their questions. So go ahead and do that, and we're going to be answering questions for about the next hour. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about, I always like to have a little, thoughts with Nate before we start these things. And so this past weekend, the past couple weekends, we've gone to various events and stuff like that. And I have a request for people watching who know what they're talking about. You're an engineer, you're in the industry, you're in sales, for this kind of stuff. And I know you guys like to help. Stop making things overcomplicated. We've had multiple people over the last couple weeks come up to our booth, and last week specifically, I'm just going to tell the whole story.
Oh man!
But
You're going to make me mad.
I'm sorry. It needs to be addressed because it's a problem. It's a problem in Facebook groups, like really bad. Anyway, so the actual story is this guy came up and he was talking to us in our booth, and he was asking all these questions, and they were pretty good questions for the most part, and he came up and we have this little like sheet of like prices and stuff like that. And it was like the specific one was solar array wiring kits. So we've got like, various solar charging wiring kits, different solar panel sizes, configurations, battery bank voltages, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, pushes his glasses up, and he's like, well, actually, that should be solar modules. And it's like, well, I mean, they're solar panels. If you search on Google, it's solar panels. And so I just have a request. If you're in the industry, if you're an engineer, if you know what you're talking about, stop making this stuff difficult for beginners. Stop trying to correct people whenever it's semantics or it's, just a technical thing that does not matter. So
Yeah, if I call something a Kleenex instead of a tissue, you still know what I'm talking about.
yeah. Okay, well, that's my little rant for the morning. I just wanted to get that off of our chest. Hopefully that makes things better. Like, Facebook groups are notoriously bad about that kind of stuff. You'll ask a simple question that has a simple answer, and then there'll be 35 electrical engineers that are giving the highly, highly, highly technical stuff that nobody actually needs. So
Yeah. Okay, stepping off of the soapbox, let's get into the actual questions and make them less complicated for people.
perfect. Let's do it.
Okay, our first question was from Samuel Adams. He says, I'd like to install my Multiplus 24 volt 3K. Let's see, and a Midnight Solar AC 120 volt breaker. Question, would I wire this 30 amp breaker before the transfer switch or after this transfer switch, which is only going to the Multiplus power in?
You shouldn't really need to put a. Is that your watch?
Sorry, my phone was ringing.
Oh, I could just hear it really far in the background. You shouldn't need to put a breaker there. You don't need to really put a breaker on the AC input side of things because your generator should have a breaker. I say that because you mentioned a transfer switch. Your generator will have a breaker on the output. Your shore power pedestal has a breaker in it. If you're connected to 15 amp outlet in a home, that breaker is in the wall. All those wires are protected at their sources. It's sort of the same reason why you don't need a breaker in between your outlet and your blender, for example, because that whole circuit is protected in the breaker box. So that shouldn't be necessary unless you've got something else and weird that's going on that I don't have the context for.
Cool. I think that's it. There was a little bit more context for it, but I think you've covered everything.
Cool.
Sam, if not, just let us know. Tim asked, a Multiplus 2 12 volts 3K, 824 amp hour battery bank. The Multiplus keeps shutting off when it reaches about 200 amp hours of consumption due to low battery. Oh, that's a settings issue.
I would say so. Yeah, that's going to be a settings issue. There's two different things that are two different settings to kind of look into on that one. The first one is making sure that 200 amp hours is actually 200 amp hours, and that's going to be a shunt setting. So whether that's the smart shunt, the BMV 712, or the Lynx shunt, you're going to want to make sure that that's set up to properly see whenever your batteries are draining. Now, if it's just the Multiplus that shuts down at 200 amp hours and your DC loads keep on discharging, then there's a potential that the Multiplus is shutting down due to low voltage. Just a low voltage shutdown. So you can kind of play around with that, the Multiplus low voltage shutdown, depending on which batteries you have, and sort of lower that low shutdown voltage. If these are lithium batteries, the lithium batteries are going to shut down at a safe voltage inside of their BMS. And now this is like built-in BMSs like Battleborn. With like Victron BMSs, it's a little different story. But for Battleborn, for example, it's going to shut down at a particular voltage, and it's sort of up to you as a user to decide if you want your Multiplus to run all the way down to 0%. Some people don't want to do that because they want that little bit of a warning. Hey, let's shut my Multiplus off. Let's shut off heavy AC loads at like 20% or 10% or whatever that is. That way your batteries don't completely die and you don't lose your like state of charge setting and everything like that. So those are the two. I would say check into your shunt settings and also play around with the low battery shutdown or low voltage shutdown on the Multiplus settings.
Cool. Yeah. Is that it on that one?
I think so.
Great. Okay. So Tiger asked running 3 solar panels in series and two panels in series, then running both in series parallel. So running both in parallel. I saw in one of the videos, that's a no. Why not? What will happen?
Is this a mismatched solar array? Question.
Well, it doesn't say what the wattage of the panels, but three panels in series, and let's just say all. It looks like they would all be 100 watts.
Yeah, I've got this pulled up right here.
So 3 panels in series, 2 panels in series, and then both of those run in parallel. Yeah.
Grace, can you drop the link to the video talking about mismatched solar panel arrays? Even though this isn't necessarily a mismatched solar panel array, because all the solar panels are the same size, that video will teach you the math behind what will happen if you do that. You're going to have some pretty significant inefficiencies and lost power if you do that. If you've got a 500 watt solar array, realistically, you just need to size the charge controller properly and run all your panels in series. You're going to get so much more power out of that. Either that or run 3 panels in series to one charge controller and 2 panels in series to another charge controller. So, on our shop, we've got options for both of those. Let's see if I can screen share. Oh, let me flip this around. Let's share the right screen. Okay, so if you go to our shop and then go to shop and then go to wiring kits and then solar array wiring kits right here, then you've got all kinds of options for that. So you've got that 3 by 100 watt solar array, and then you've also got a 2 by 100 in there somewhere. Not seeing it immediately, but it's in there. So if you just go to this page, then you can kind of filter over here by your solar panel wattage and your battery bank voltage, and then that'll get you pointed in the right direction over there. So that's what I would recommend doing. Okay.
Cool. Let's see. Okay, any tips or recommendations for series wired batteries where midpoint voltage drifts over time? Oh, sorry. My screen just jumped. I don't know where I am now. Oh, there it is. Any tips or recommendations for series wired batteries where midpoint voltage drifts over time or when deeply discharged and significantly reduces battery capacity and charging capabilities?
Every battery manufacturer is going to have a different way of handling that, or the way they recommend handling that. Some batteries, like, it shouldn't matter. Like, you should just be able to charge it back up to the full and go from there. With series wired battery banks and that midpoint voltage and stuff like that, with most batteries with a good BMS inside of them, they're going to, as long as you charge both or all of your batteries to 100% full and then connect them in series, then you should be good to go. Victron does have battery balancers where you can sort of connect, you can charge your 12 volt, your 2 individual 12 volt batteries or whatever the case is, independently and separately at the same time when they're actively wired into a battery bank. But none of our system designs really need that, just because charge the batteries to full and then let it run. Should be good. With Battleborn batteries, I really don't see any problems with that historically. So, in short, reach out to your battery manufacturer and see what they recommend with that particular problem. Based on whichever batteries you actually have.
Cool. Okay. Pat is trying to decide between a system design by us with Victron components for a 5 or 10 kilowatt, or a 5 or 10 kilowatt Ecoflow system. Would love to hear your thoughts on the for the 2023 Ford Transit Trail.
We are 3 for 3 weeks about
Yes.
Ecoflow questions. Ecoflows, I mean, all the portable power units are fine, but in my opinion, you shouldn't install them as like a built-in situation, like a permanently installed situation. Portable power stations, like we're talking about, we have one. We've got a little Jackery 500 or whatever it is that charge up and throw it in the Subaru and go weekend car camping and stuff like that. But most of the portable power stations in general, they just don't have the quality that we sort of demand in a built-in permanently installed electrical system. They don't have the flexibility. So if you want to have more alternator charging, if you want to have more solar, if you want to have a secondary solar array, if you want to do dedicated alternator charging, if you want more inverter capacity, it just lacks those kinds of options. I think more often than not, we get a ton of questions come through our info inbox. People asking, it's like, hey, I bought this portable power unit and I want to add this functionality to it. What Victron component can I use to make that work? And it's like, well, like a portable power unit, you shouldn't be adding modules and boxes and stuff to it. You should just plop it in place and it work. If you want something that's a little more expandable and versatile, you should probably just have gone the Victron route in the first place and called it good. So big saying around Explorer's Life is do it right the first time so you don't have to do it twice. And that's pretty much where that is.
Yes. Do it right. Do it once.
And it's important to know that like we are Victron dealers. We sell Victron components, but we without sounding cocky, we could sell any portable power unit in our store that we wanted to. We just choose not to because of those reasons that we outlined. So
yes. Okay, moving on. Marlon asked, I just purchased a 30 amp setup from your store. Any suggestions, tips, or tricks before the installation and also on programming?
Not specifically. I will say if last year we made a playlist of tutorials.
Yeah.
Grace, if you'll drop the link to the playlist of full installs from last year, that would be helpful. And yeah, just watch through those, and we did everything in painstaking detail. So check those out. Take your time. Be organized. Whenever you're doing your project, do it in the steps that we show in the video. Like we really thought that through and came up with the best way to do that and not make mistakes. Sit down, make the battery bank, with your battery bank wiring kit. Once that's done, install your Lynx distributor and all the wiring that goes to the battery bank. So take it in a step-by-step fashion. All of our kits are organized so that it works really well like that. As far as programming and stuff like that, we've got programming guides that you can go to. So if you go to shop.explorers.life, you go to resources, all blog posts. Oh, I've actually got this in a bad spot. Sorry, if you go to Explorers Life, the blog, resources, and then electrical component programming. At the bottom of all of these blog posts, we've got like cheat sheets for all of these components and everything like that. Solar charge controller. Scroll all the way down, you'll have cheat sheets at the bottom. Otherwise, if you run into like a problem, just reach out through shop.explorers.life/support, and we'll just send them all over to you. So either way works.
Perfect.
Good luck. It'll be fun.
Yes. Yep. Let us know if you've got any questions. Okay. Ken asked on the topic of buying used panels. I often hear this recommended, but how do you tell how much life may be left on a given panel?
It's kind of impossible. A panel is warranted for 20 to 25 years for rigid solar panels. So if it's been in use for 20 years, got to start to ask yourself, it's like, well, am I just buying a big piece of glass, basically?
Yeah.
if it's been in use for a year, I mean, that's fine. It's going to have no problems, I'm sure. If it's a rigid solar panel, I would say the used market for like flexible solar panels does not exist. I would never buy
Oh yeah, that's true.
a used flexible solar panel. But a rigid solar panel that's maybe like less than 5 years old, it's probably fine if you're getting a pretty steep discount.
Yeah, I mean, they're generally warranted for 25 years, so it's pretty good. Okay, Mark asked questions regarding connecting starter battery to a Renogy 50 amp DC to DC charger. The manual, the manual says 6 gauge for up to 5 meters and a 75 amp fuse. My run will be borderline 2.5 meters per cable. Should I go up to 4 gauge to be safe? And do the positive and negative need to be equal length? And then the final question on this is, can I connect the negative to the mount on the chassis that's behind the passenger seat, or must it go all the way to the starter battery negative?
Okay. I'll go ahead and answer the easy question in there. The easy one is, do the wires need to be, the positive and negatives need to be the same length? No, they do not in that particular situation. In most situations, they don't need to be the exact same length. They need to be close-ish, but not in that scenario. Okay, so wire size. Use the biggest size that will fit in the terminal. So if that unit will accept a 4 gauge wire, use a 4 gauge wire. What was the other question? That was like a 4-part question.
Yeah, sorry. No, you got most of it. The chassis.
Oh yeah. Yeah. For the chassis ground, we, in our experience, using the chassis as an actual current carrying conductor, not running dedicated wiring, is sort of a recipe for failure in our experience. And that's why you'll see in our wiring kits that even on a non-isolated DC to DC charger, we're still running dedicated wire all the way up to the front and then connecting it through a junction stud. It just makes such a more reliable connection. I guess I've just had so many problems, personally, and also through customers who end up having to like chase down bad grounds.
Yeah.
If you run dedicated wiring, there's no question on where that wiring goes. And it's so much easier to get a really, really good electrical connection that you're never going to have to mess with going forward.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Earl asked, is there an effective way to monitor lead acid or AGM state of charge with a traditional shunt?
Traditional shunt? I'm not sure what a traditional shunt is.
With a shunt. Let's just call it with a
shunt. Yeah,
shunt.
with a shunt. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what they do. That's their whole goal and their whole purpose. They work shunts like the Victron Smart Shunt and the BMV 712, which has its own shunt. Both of those are literally made to monitor your battery voltage, regardless, or your state of charge, your voltage. Know whenever the batteries have gone through a full charging cycle, amps in, amps out, time to empty, time till charged, all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter what I keep saying voltage, what chemistry, there it is, what chemistry of battery you're using. It's all programmable. It's going to work for any chemistry of battery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Let's see. Tim said, I'm building out a box truck, and for the ground wire, can I just drill through any of the metal studs?
Yeah, for chassis ground connections, realistically, that just needs to be to any solidly attached piece of metal in your camper. So if this is a box truck that's, a metal body with metal framing, like, you can just go to whatever's closest. It doesn't have to go to the actual like frame of the truck. That's not a thing you need to do. That'll work, but that's more work than it's worth usually. It's more work than it's worth all the time. But yeah, if you've got metal studs with metal body panels, then yeah, just whatever metal is closest with it all bolted and screwed together, or bolted and welded together. If you're talking about a box truck with a fiberglass body, you basically don't have to do a chassis ground, because there's realistically no way to have an actual chassis ground for the sake of safety in a fiberglass non-conductive camper. So, without going too far into that, we'll cover that in a future video in the Academy in further depth. But if it's metal, just go to the closest metal. If it's fiberglass, you don't need to worry about it.
Cool. Okay, so investing for a living videos asked, I'm installing a Multiplus 3K 230 volt in my van in France with 560 amp hours of batteries, looking for 4-aught 105 degree wire welding cable over here. Do you know if H07VK95 or 120 millimeter squared cable would work?
I don't know about that particular cable, but I do know that we ship internationally.
Yes, we do.
Shop.explorers.life. Our Multiplus 12 volt 3K wiring kit. The DC side is going to be the same on, regardless of if the output is 120 versus 230. So, yeah. I'll show you how to get to that real quick. Screen share. Back to the store. Shop.explorers.life. And then if you go to shop and then wiring kits and then component wiring kits, a component wiring kit is basically the wiring kit for a specific component. So we got a Multiplus wiring kit. It's probably on page 2 because it was one of the first ones we ever put on the site. Yeah, right here in the middle. So inverter charger wiring kit. Click on that and then choose your inverter charger. And so we got all the options there. And so, realistically, you'll just click on your Victron Multiplus 12, 3000 and 120 volt. That doesn't matter because this is just the DC side of the system. So all the 4-aught welding cable that you're talking about, lugs, heat shrink, fuses, and mounting screws. Okay, that's that.
Great. Okay, Josh asked, do you recommend an RV surge protector from the 30 amp shore power to a Multiplus? Is this already handled in any way in the Multiplus with a fuse or other protection?
So overcurrent protection is already in the shore power pedestal, but a surge protector is always a good idea. Sort of like, you should probably put a surge protector on your desktop computer or, your Xbox or whatever the case is. I like just the simple ones that you can put, plug right into the shore power inlet, the 30 amp shore power pedestal. Because sometimes, depending on the situation, especially if you're troubleshooting a problem, especially if you're having to troubleshoot like shore power not charging correctly, I always have people take the surge protector out of the equation and connect shore power directly to the shore power inlet. Mm-hmm. And so, there are hardwired versions of surge protectors, but it makes troubleshooting difficult when you can't just unplug it and go that route. So yes, I do recommend it, and I also recommend just the plug-in ones that go directly to the shore power pedestal. And we don't have any of those in our store just yet. So that's just an Amazon one. Progressive Dynamics, I think they have a 30 amp shore power surge protector. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. I'm interested in charging a separate 12 volt lithium battery that I use for a trolling motor in a boat that I tow with the van. Do I need a separate DC to DC charger for this, or is there an easier way?
Let's see. I'm trying to think here of scenarios so I won't have to ask follow-up questions since we're already here. For something like that, I'm just going to charge it with probably just a standard, battery charger. Charge it up before you go, from a wall outlet. So, something like the, let's see if we can find it real quick. So components, chargers. Where would the blue smart charger be? Oh, there it is, chargers. Yeah, so one of these right here, the 12, 15 amp or the 25 amp. Realistically, if it's just one battery, like you'd probably be fine with the 15 amp, the smaller charger. But yeah, one side plugs into 120, the other side connects to your trolling motor battery, and then call it good. And you can, if you've got your camper or your van or whatever you said, I don't have it pulled up at the moment, but if you've got a Victron system, an off-grid system or whatever in your camper, and then you want to run this charger from that system to charge your trolling battery, that's going to work just fine. This is just going to plug into your 15 amp outlet, the same as any other component or device, just fine. Yep, that's what I'd say.
Yep, cool. Okay, question about the battery protect. With my 12 volt 300 amp hour battery, which battery protect is recommended, and especially how to choose the right model? Can you explain the battery protect?
Yeah, sure. So the Victron Smart Battery Protect is basically just a big relay, and it's able to be programmed to connect or disconnect under varying conditions, whether that just be a low voltage or a high voltage situation, or connected by, or controlled by DVCC through the Victron external BMS system if you're using Victron batteries. As far as like choosing the right one, you have to sort of start asking yourself, how big the system is and how much power is going through it. And usually the 100 amp version is fine, because all you're really doing with that Smart Battery Protect is putting it in between your Lynx distributor and your 12 volt fuse block. You don't want to put it in between your batteries and your Lynx distributor, because the Smart Battery Protect is only able to go one direction. So if you put it there and it's running loads just fine, but then all of a sudden you start charging your battery bank, smoke. It's going to break. So that's not really where it goes. But that's more or less like why we don't have that in any of our system designs at the because we don't use Victron batteries in our systems, because everything's handled through the internal battery BMS of, for example, Battleborn batteries. So that part isn't necessary. So, if you're following our systems and designs, you don't need that part. So just sort of refer to our tutorials and our wiring diagrams to see how those systems are wired together and installed. And if you are using Victron batteries and you are using the Smart Battery Protect, reach out to your Victron dealer that you've chosen to do business with, and see what they recommend as far as that, because they'll be able to point you in the right direction as far as how they've designed their system that they've sold you.
Yep, cool. Okay, Earl asked, does a typical 7-pin connector provide any power to the trailer to charge the battery?
Some. It's not much. It's 3 to 5 amps usually. It's very minimal.
Usually not worthwhile.
Yeah. And sometimes kind of the quote unquote risk with it. I don't want to say risk that, because that makes it seem unsafe, but if that 7-pin connector is delivering 3 amps to it, but you've also got let's say 30 amps worth of solar charging going on, the solar charging may shut down in favor of those 3 amps of DC to DC charging from the 7-pin connector. If you're doing in the simple solution there, it's just to disconnect that particular part. The hard part about that is finding out which wire that is specifically. But you should probably, with a little bit of time, with half an afternoon with a multimeter at your batteries, your factory batteries will help with that. With our systems and our kits with dedicated secondary DC to DC charging, or not secondary, dedicated DC to DC chargers, like through the new Orion XS. you have to run dedicated wires. You have to run dedicated 4-gauge wires for those, all the way up to the vehicle starting battery. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little more complicated than just plugging in the 7-pin connector, but you're going to get 50 amps of charging out of it, which is a lot. And that's, always a plus. So much better than the 7-pin charging.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Make this asked, I'm installing a battery bank in the center of my pass-through. I'm running the Lynx distributor, and after the Lynx distributor, I was hoping to run the battery disconnect on the negative cable. That should be the positive cable. Out to the side for easy access. Are there any issues with the negative being longer than the positive loop between the Lynx and Victron Multiplus? I do want to just address that. You keep mentioning in this question that the disconnect is on the negative. That disconnect should be on the positive side.
Yeah, disconnect on the positive wire. As far as the length goes, it's actually not critical for the 2 wires coming from the battery bank to the Lynx distributor to be exactly the same. Now, I had a video a while back that said they had to be the exact same, and that kind of backfired on me. Not because I was necessarily incorrect, it was just because my intentions were not, they didn't come across like properly. Because I had like several people who were like, yeah, I can run, the positive one is 1 foot, and then the negative one can go all the way to the back of the trailer and then to the front of the trailer and then up and around and all that kind of stuff. And I only have to count it as 2 feet because the positive one is 1 feet. It's like, that's not how that works. So my intention with that was say, just be reasonable with your wire runs. Keep them as short as absolutely possible, and it'll be fine. With our wiring kits, we from the battery bank to the Lynx distributor, we only supply 5 feet of each, and that's because that's the max you can do. It's not because we're trying to limit you or be mean or anything like that. That's a math-based decision.
Yeah. Paul asked, I have 3 Renogy 12-volt 100 amp hour batteries connected together. Renogy no longer makes them. The new ones have Bluetooth. Can I connect the new version with the old ones, making 4 of them with a total of 400 amp hours?
That's going to be a Renogy question. You'll have to reach out to Renogy tech support, unfortunately, for that one. I can't. Typically you don't want to mix and match battery brands or voltages or chemistries or models or anything like that. So you want everything to generally want everything to be the same everything. So reach out to Renogy, see what they have to say about it. They'll probably try to sell you 3 more batteries just like the one you bought. So unfortunately, I just know how that's going to turn out. I just didn't want to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah. Okay. Scott asked, I have a Victron Multiplus 3000 that trips my home breaker. I can't get it started. Any suggestions?
If it's actually tripping the breaker and not tripping a GFCI like outlet, you've probably got your shore power input current limit a little too high. And I actually see Ira message or answered this one in the chat, and that's perfectly right. Yeah, you've probably got your shore power input current limit set too high. You've probably got it set to 30 or 50 amps, and you need to turn that down to a level that's lower than the breaker of the outlet that you're connecting to. So if you're on a standard 15 amp outlet and you've got a 15 amp breaker in that, turn that shore power input current limit through the Serbo GX and touchscreen or the Victron Connect app down to like 10 or 12 maybe, or even lower if you need to, until it stops tripping that breaker, especially if you've got other stuff on that same circuit. Deep freeze, 3D printer, who knows what else you've got on that same circuit. And that could be pulling additional power and tripping that breaker. Now, if it's a GFCI outlet and not necessarily a breaker, then that is just a problem with GFCI outlets and inverter chargers in general. And that has to do with the neutral to ground bond relay inside of the inverter charger not switching fast enough and then the GFCI sees that as a ground fault, and it's going to trip. And if you connect to a 30 amp shore power inlet that's GFCI breaker, that's typically not a problem. It's usually the GFCI outlets that's more of a problem. So, fortunately / unfortunately, the easy fix there is to don't connect to a 15 amp GFCI outlet. So that's realistically the solution there.
Okay. Jay asked, do you have a video installing the 50 amp split phase inverter system?
We do not have a video for that specifically.
No.
But in our playlist of full installation tutorials, if you watch through those, you're going to be armed with every skill that you need to do the split phase installation. That coupled with the dual multiplus split phase diagram and kit, you're going to get all the parts you need to do that. And then the diagram shows you everything you need to actually connect everything together. So, once you watch through the full installation tutorials, you're going to learn how to crimp lugs, do heat shrink, gut wires, install ferrules, all that kind of stuff. And the only difference between those systems and a dual multiplus system is you're just doing it twice. And for the AC side of things, if you just follow the diagram for how all that stuff is wired on the AC side with the dual multiplus splitter boxes, you're going to be set up for success. It looks kind of intimidating on the diagram, but if you take it from a line by line, wire by wire situation, it's really not that bad.
Cool. I have 3 Battleborn batteries, but adding more is too expensive. I found an interesting Chinese brand for $200 each for 100 amp hour batteries. What are your thoughts?
You can't mix and match battery brands.
Yeah.
More or less, yeah. It's going to give you subpar results. I would imagine that even as good as Battleborn's warranty and customer service is, if they see their batteries, if you have problems and you contact their customer service and they ask for pictures of how you've wired your battery banks, and then they see other batteries wired into the same battery bank, they're probably going to be less likely to help, just because that's really not how you do things.
Yeah. Okay. Josh asked, any suggestions on wiring house batteries to trickle charge the vehicle battery? I have power doors which run down my vehicle battery if camped too long.
Weird. It's always strange. You could, the easiest way, I brought this, I've still got the screen pulled up, but if you go to components, shop components, chargers right here, you can go to this right here, and that's going to bring you to these chargers. And you can take this this Blue Smart 15 amp charger and then plug one end into your standard 15 amp household outlet, and then connect the other end to your starting battery. This end will be powered by your van's electrical system through the Multiplus, and then this side will be connected to your starting battery. That's going to be the easiest, most straightforward way that I could recommend doing it. Now, there's about 40 different ways to do this, but this is the most easy and the most straightforward way of doing things. There is a trickle charge function on the Multiplus itself, but as far as I know, now I've never hooked this up personally, that only charges when you're connected to shore power. So, if you're just on solar, I don't know that Multiplus will trickle charge whenever it's not connected to shore power, but using that charger that I just shared will absolutely work. So,
cool. Okay, we have a situation with a 12 volt battery bank, 600 watt solar array with a Victron MPPT 150-100. In a perfect world, the solar array would get 111 amps, which is over the charge capacity of the charge controller. The Victron charge controller seems to be handling the situation okay, but should I be worried?
In a perfect world, realistically, no, that's not a problem. You can over wattage your solar charge control. What was the size of the of the
There's
chart?
an MPPT 150-100.
Oh, 150, 100. I misheard that. I was like, wow, that's really overpowered. No. Okay,
No.
yeah, 150, 100. In a perfect world, you'd be getting 111 amps. No, that's not a problem. Your charge controller is just going to cap it at 100 amps, and that's going to be that. You know, realistically, the only two times that you can send too much power to the charge controller is if you send too much voltage. If your solar array voltage is too high, that would damage the charge controller. And then if the short circuit current of the array is larger than the allowable short circuit current of the charge controller, that would also damage it. But for the 150, 100, that short circuit amperage coming from the array is somewhere nearly like 80 amps or something like that. And unless you've got a ton of panels you've wired in parallel, which is not a good idea anyway, you're never going to come close to that number. So those are the two considerations, but it doesn't sound like either of those is a problem.
No. Okay, Boiler Up asked, can a Victron Multiplus 3000 be mounted sideways, or is it best to just mount it upright?
If you can mount it upright, it's going to cool better. It's going to perform better if it's upright. You can, quote unquote, mount it sideways, but I think depending on which Multiplus model, you've got the instruction manual specifically say to install it vertically. It's just going to cool better like that, and the cooler it runs, the more power it's going to be able to put out, the less overheating errors you're going to have. If you can't do that, if you have to mount it sideways, just go ahead and plan to have to install some kind of like vent fans in the electrical enclosure of the the electrical enclosure where the Multiplus is mounted. Try to keep it cool.
Yep, perfect. Okay, Lee asked, so there is an existing 1,000 watt inverter in their motorhome. Does the 12 volt Victron Multiplus 3K take the place of the inverter that currently runs the residential refrigerator, and so therefore remove the inverter from the battery bank relocation kit bus bar?
No. So what you're going to do there is, and it sounds like this is what you've described, in pretty much all RVs that have a pre-existing inverter, that's wired on the downstream side of the breaker box. And what this does, the way it's wired, I wish I had a diagram for it. I do. It's somewhere. I don't know where it is. I'll publish it one of these days. That's an academy lesson that's coming up, but that probably won't be till next year. But anyway, in those factory installed inverters, they have a transfer switch either built in or immediately upstream from them. And they are either going to allow shore power to pass through if shore power is available. And if not, it's going to invert from the battery to power that one single circuit. So, like I said, if shore power is available, it's just going to come from shore power, and that inverter is just going to be in pass-through, and no power is going to be drawn from that inverter. Now, in our system designs, where we are splicing the Multiplus 3K inverter charger in line in between the shore power inlet and the 120 volt breaker box, that's effectively looking like shore power as far as the breaker box is concerned. So the breaker box is like, hey, I'm getting power from upstream of myself, the breaker box. I'm talking in third person like I'm a breaker box now. And it doesn't care that it's getting power from shore or from the Multiplus at this point. It just knows that it's getting power from, upstream of it. And so whenever that happens, that inverter that's looking for shore power sees that shore power, which is actually coming from the Multiplus. And then that inverter is just that 1,000 watt inverter is just always in pass-through mode and no power is being drawn. If you can reach the switch for the inverter and turn that off, that's fine. That's a good idea. That way there's no like standby power being drawn, but that's not a critical thing. You don't have to do that. It's realistically, it doesn't matter. You don't have to touch it.
Cool. Okay. Brandon asked, I have a 50 amp split phase shore power with a generator without a transfer box. This is in a marine application. Can a system be designed to use only one Victron 3K inverter?
Read that one more time.
Yep.
A lot to digest in that one.
Yeah. It's a 50 amp split phase shore power with a generator without a transfer box in a marine application. Can a system be designed to use only one Victron 3K inverter?
Yes, the Multiplus 3K 2X120 is that. It can accept, 120 on leg 1, 120 on leg 2. So, yeah, that's what you're after. I'm not sure, I'm not fully understanding how a system that has shore power plus
And
a generator
does not have a transfer switch.
doesn't have a transfer switch unless you're just plugging your generator into shore power, which if that's the case, that doesn't really affect anything electrically, downstream of the shore power inlet. But yeah, look into the Multiplus 2X120. That's what we have. We have those in our store. So if you need us to take a sort of deeper look and you're going to buy the Multiplus from us, reach out shop.explorers.life/support.
Cool. Brian asked, do you have a cheat sheet for the settings of a dual Victron XS 50 amp DC to DC chargers installed on a Sprinter?
We do. Are they public? Have we published those?
No.
I made it the other day.
Yeah, I just started working on them yesterday. They'll be published soon. But if you just want to shoot us an email at shop.explorers.life/support and ask for that cheat sheet, I will email it to you.
Yep. We'll get it published soon.
Very soon, yeah.
I made it, and then that was the end of that.
No, that was the end of what you did. Then I have to actually do the rest of it.
Oh, you've been doing so many other things.
Okay. New York asked, I'm installing 6 Battleborn batteries. Do I need 2 Victron Links distributors, or will one do?
One will be just fine.
Yep.
So if you go over to shop.explorers.life, into shop, into wiring kits, electrical systems, build your own electrical kit, and then let's just assume it's in a van. If it's not, you could sort of go through the right menus to get there. Explore more. Explore more is our Multiplus 3K system featuring 6 batteries.
No, it's not. That our Explore More is a 5K. That's a Quattro. It's the Explore.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I know.
Oops. 1 second. Navigating.
So it's the Explore van wiring kit. Let's see. Are we just looking for diagrams here, or
yeah,
the kit itself?
So yeah, just the diagram. I was just trying to show the diagram. That's the part of this full kit. So yeah, this diagram, that's this full kit. You'll notice how all these batteries are wired together in parallel, and then those are not even going into a links distributor. Those are just going into the switch and the shunt. Directly from the battery bank. So you don't need to wire every battery bank to its own spot on the links distributor in our particular systems.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to actually jump back to the one that we were just talking about with the split phase shore power with a generator without a transfer switch in the marine.
Cool.
Brandon clarified it is using lockout breakers on the panel. Does that change your answer at all?
Lockout breakers on the panel. Interesting. Does that change my answer? That complicates the answer. I don't know. That's a weird way of doing that. So a lockout breaker in a panel is pretty typical for like a residential backup generator kind of situation. It's got this kind of goofy looking brackety thing that makes it so that if you toggle one breaker on, you can toggle that one breaker on, but then you have to move that bracket in order. It's like a physical interlock. I assume that's what you're talking about. But that's pretty much how that works. if it were me and that was my system and that was my boat, I would be rewiring that part of it to go into a transfer switch so that it would go shore power and generator to transfer switch to Multiplus 2X120 to breaker box. That's the direction I would investigate going with that, because you sort of don't have a way to isolate that. Well, I mean, honestly, if you wanted to install just the Multiplus 2X120 on the shore power line, you could do it like that. Yeah, now that I'm thinking further about it. We haven't run into this, so I'm making this up on the fly. So yeah, the wire the 6-4 wire that's going from your 50 amp shore power inlet to your breaker box, to that one breaker that's in there, if you wanted to put the Multiplus 2X120 on that line, then that line would be feeding your whole breaker box from your new battery or your upgraded battery bank, and would also charge from shore. So shore to Multiplus to breaker box. And then in the event you wanted to use your generator, well, no, that makes me nervous too, because if you switched over to your generator, then your generator would power your whole breaker box, but you wouldn't be able to charge the system because the generator power wouldn't be going through the Multiplus, which is a battery charger. So yeah, I think there's some rewiring involved in that one to get that one to sort of work properly. So good question.
That is a good question.
That made me think. This is actually my thought process. It'll work like this. No, it won't.
No, it won't. Yeah, cool. Very good question. Okay, let's see. I already answered that question. Do you have a video on how to use a multimeter?
We do. We have an old video. Grace, if you'll search for Explorus Life, how to read voltage, or
That was a really
Explorus
long time ago.
Life multimeter. Yeah, it's an old video. It's probably like 2019 or something like that, but it's still relevant. Multimeters haven't changed. So I've got more wrinkles now. That's the main difference between that video and this video.
You have a lot more tattoos.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I actually accidentally skipped over one too. Tony asked, am I able to put an EG4 6000 XP on my box truck? I'm in the planning phase right now. And that is, I Googled it.
Okay.
It's
What is that?
It's a portable sun, just a all-in-one solar charger.
Probably.
Solar generator, I think that's what that would be considered.
Yeah, if the question is, can you use that? Probably.
Yeah.
I don't really, that's not really what we use in our system designs, nor do we have any experience with that. But yeah, there's 100 different ways to wire an electrical system in a box truck or camper or expedition vehicle or whatever. But yeah, that's an option.
Yeah,
No.
I think if I were answering this question, I would be reaching out to whoever you plan to purchase that from, because it won't be us. We don't sell something like that. And ask them how to wire it. And if they can't answer that question, then perhaps
come back
consider
to
not
us.
using that.
Come back to us and and buy your parts from us, and then we can help.
Yeah.
We make tutorials about this stuff every weekend.
Okay, Jim asked, can you mix charging from solar and DC to DC? You made a comment about how solar might shut down with the 7-pin connector.
Yeah, you can do that. And I don't know if the firmware has been updated on the newest Victron Orion XS, but they will synchronize charging via their software. And, even with the older Orion XSs, since they're both since the power from the old Orion and most solar arrays on charge controllers, in our transit specifically, we're actually seeing synchronized charging, even though they're not actively communicating, which is super cool. So if it's the new Orion XS and that new firmware is up to date, it's pretty much guaranteed to synchronize charging. And if it's not, and if that firmware hasn't been released yet, or it's the older Orion 30 amp charger, there's still a chance that it would synchronize charging. It's just not a like guaranteed like software based synchronization.
Yeah. Cool.
And just a little bit more clarification on it. With the 7-pin connector, it's not guaranteed that that's going to shut down the charge controller. It's just whenever you have two different charging sources that aren't like actively communicating with each other via software, it's just inconsistent on like anticipating what will actually happen. So you just have to like monitor it and see.
Cool. Brennan had a follow-up on the question about the chassis grounding to the metal of the box truck. If the box truck is aluminum, is grounding to that okay?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Alex asked, knowing that a 48-volt electrical system is more efficient than a 12-volt system, is there a difference in power consumption?
Nope. There is not. 1,000 watts is 1,000 watts, regardless of what the source voltage is. Yep. And that's an internet myth that a 48-volt system is more efficient than a 12-volt system. If you're running a 120-volt air conditioner at 1,000 watts, and it's a 48-volt battery bank versus a 12-volt battery bank, maybe there's some really small minor like efficiency losses, but not enough to really like be worried about or consider. So yeah, the only time like you get into like us recommending 48-volt systems as a result of efficiency is just a system design efficiency. Whenever we can't use, whenever we have to start using double 4-aught wires or something silly like that, we're going to boost that voltage up to a higher voltage.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Okay. So jumping back to there was a question on, let me try to find it, on the house breaker. Mm-hmm. Let's see. They clarified not connected to shore power on 800 amp hours of lithium battery. The Multiplus won't turn on from the face panel switch. Could this be an internal fuse issue? Everything else in the electrical system is functioning normal, DC to DC charging, MPPT, Servo GX, etc. But the Servo GX is not recognizing the Multiplus. So that was the one that was the
GFCI was tripping?
We thought that was what it was.
Say that again. What was tripping? The phase breaker or face?
Face is what it said.
I don't know what that is. The face
no,
breaker?
No, the face switch.
Oh.
The face switch. The switch on the face of the
okay.
actual Multiplus.
I see.
I don't know why I'm...
no,
you can't see what I'm doing.
Okay, so that switch is not doing anything? That's
what I'm understanding it as. It's the Multiplus. Now, who asked this question? I'm sorry, I lost your name. But what is the Multiplus not turning on at all, or is it tripping a breaker? Would be my question.
Yeah, I would be curious in that too. Let us know, and we'll try to circle back around to that. Let us know if the switch on the front is just not working. You already said it's not showing up in the Servo GX, or is it tripping a breaker? Yeah, let us know, and we'll try to circle back around to that. We'll try to keep an eye out for a reply there.
For replies.
I don't want to explain a problem that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Have you ever done a video on understanding your RV's electrical system for factory installed systems?
That a specific video like that is coming up in the Explorers Life Academy. But realistically, that's not going to be out for that's not going to be till next year. But if you go to our full install tutorials that we put out last year, that's going to do that.
Yes.
So it's teaching you how to upgrade an electrical system. But if you watch through how that works, then you're going to understand how those systems work. Grace, if you could drop that playlist in one more time. Grace, you're just gonna have to keep that link on rapid fire because we're being able to share that one a lot this morning. That's good. That's my favorite playlist. That we work so hard on that playlist, and I'm always glad whenever we can link out to that playlist because it's so helpful. But yeah, check those out. And
it's got a lot of long videos in it, so I understand it seems overwhelming, but it's incredibly helpful.
Yep.
Okay, Jay asked, looking on your website, I only see kits offering 2 3,000 watt inverters at 24 volt. Do you also offer kits at 5,000 watt inverters for 48 volt?
We do. We just recently released an off-grid cabin system. And if you navigate from, screen share. If you navigate to, let's do shop and then electrical systems, build your own electrical kit, off-grid cabin. Explore XX, dual 5K, 48 volt. This system is a dual 5 kVA inverter charger system with a 48 volt battery bank. So it's not really set up for a camper, but if you're trying to purchase this, reach out at shop.explorers.life/support and just let us know you want this kit in a camper version, and we can put that together for you. Right?
Yep. I think that's the plan.
I think it's already kind of sort of available to a degree. So, yeah.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, we can get it. It might not be immediate.
It's not going to be before this weekend.
No.
But we could have it out the door probably in 2 weeks.
Speaking of this weekend, we are a little bit past our hour mark. I'm going to go ahead and answer the last few questions that are on here, but if the question is not in chat right now, as of this timestamp, whatever we're at.
Cut off. Last call.
So that is all. But with that being said, I'm going to jump to the last question that's on here. I will answer the remaining of them, but this is just Scott giving us some background on that inverter with the switch not turning on. Scott said, first it tripped, now it won't turn on while disconnected from shore power.
Tripping that breaker.
So it tripped the shore power.
Yep.
Then now it won't turn on
I
from
almost,
battery bank.
Based on what we know here, I'm going to say if the switch on the front of the inverter is set to on and you're connected to shore power and it's not doing anything and you're connected to a Servo GX, I think there's probably a Servo GX communications issue, and I would disconnect the RJ45s from the Multiplus and then see if the Multiplus turns back on. If that solves the problem, a typical problem that we see in that particular solution or situation is somebody using non-Victron branded cables. And I know I'm going to get hate for blaming it on a non-Victron branded cable, but I've had that problem multiple times. We see it pretty often that a Victron branded cable fixes it, just because there's other cables that aren't necessarily like built correctly or quality or et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that that's probably a direction to go, but I still don't have just a ton of clarity on the actual problem on like a tripped breaker versus the switch on the front. Do you have any additional on that?
No, I was just going to say, if this is an inverter that you purchased from us, go ahead and shoot us an email at shop.explorers.life/support and give us a little bit more background and context. You can share picture. We'll be able to send you an email where you can share pictures of the system. I think this kind of goes a little bit more.
This is more troubleshooting.
In-depth troubleshooting than what we can really do on a chat where it's pretty delayed back and forth. So I think that's that on that one. We have 2 more questions in here. So Pat asked, said, I'm confused. The Ecoflow 5 or 10 kilowatt kits don't seem like portable units, yet you refer to them as so. They seem like permanent power stations for your van. Is the response still the same?
Yeah, same response.
Yeah, we call them portable power units because that's just in general, industry-wide, what they're referred to as the kind of like all-in-one units.
Yeah, all-in-one
just called
battery
PPUs.
plus. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and last question is using your 580 watt solar panel transit setup, why or why not the 12 volt versus 24 volt? I plan on adding an Orion DC to DC charger. We do have options in our store for both the 12 volt and the 24 volt version.
The reason we have both versions available is because we made our transit is a 24 volt battery bank. And so that was what the solar array wiring kit was set up for. And we just had a lot of people who wanted to install that exact same solar array, but they're like, hey, we've already got a 12 volt battery bank. It's like, okay, well, we'll alter it and get the bigger charge controller and the different configuration. So, whatever your battery bank voltage is, you would match to that. If we've caught you early enough in the purchasing timeline, go with the 12 volt battery bank because then you're going to have the option of that Orion XS 50 amp charger. And if you went with a 24 volt battery bank, you're going to have to use the old style Orion, which they're simply not as good. So for more options, go with a 12 volt battery bank, and then you can use that 580 watt solar array. Now I will say, what's the update on the solar panels there? Because there's one.
The 55 watt panel is currently out of stock, but we're expecting it back in stock by the end of this month. We hope. There were some production delays on that one from Rich Solar.
So that's the reason. That's why there's two of them. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're at an hour 15, hour 20, something like that. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in this month. We'll be doing it again next month. First Friday of every month from here on out. And if we need to reschedule, we'll always make a social post. So follow us on here, follow us on Instagram and stuff like that to stay up to date with these live streams as well as new videos. I think that's it. We've got a bike and trail running event to go sponsor. If you're in Steamboat Springs this weekend, come out to House and Hill. To the Emerald Mountain Epic. Hang out with us. We've got a tent there. Our event trailer is going to be powering the start-finish line. Should be a good time. 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, from in the morning until afternoonish. So depends on...
Till the last runner crosses the finish line.
Depends on how fast people go, I guess. Okay, that's it. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thanks for everybody for showing up, the Explorers Life team behind the scenes, answering questions, and we will see you next week.